Hello, everybody. This is Jay Del Vecchio, along with Pamela, who will be leading this fantastic new webinar on the exciting field, growing field of what trainers advance into after being around, a lot of you for years and years and years. Some of you is with us, maybe 29 years. So obviously it's time to start adding those stackable skills, doing all those wonderful things that can help get you new clients, make you more valuable to employers when things are tight. They think of only one person to keep it on their team because they know the revenue generation that you can have and the successful client satisfaction that you give on a daily basis. So it's about knowledge, and that's what this is all about. So I am going to free up everybody's microphone and phone and whatever else you're on, speakers, so that if you have a question to ask Pamela, you certainly can do so as we go along. Look for a nice calm moment to jump in and ask a question. If you really get stuck, sure, you can type a question to me through the chat there, and and I will interject as I can as she's going along. But we love the interaction. We love the engagement. And that's how we can get some banter back and forth and really expand on whatever item that you're trying to get answers on. So today we have about 150 people on here. So don't be shy, because chances are the question you're asking, it's the old classic. It's you were thinking it, but you just weren't sure how to maybe phrase it. And the next thing you know, you're asking it for somebody else, or they're asking something for you, and we all grow and get fantastic with it. How are we doing, Pamela? Are you ready to go? Let's see if she was having a little difficulty with her computer and was going to be jumping on here to do what she does. I see her there. Okay. Pamela, can you hear me okay? You're self-muted is what I'm saying.
There,
Okay.
Am I good? Okay. I'm
You
so
are
sorry.
good.
We're having technology issues today. Oh my goodness gracious.
Nothing a hammer can't fix, Pamela.
Right? Exactly. We keep one actually in our cupboard in the kitchen. So,
there you go.
Well, hello everybody. I'm so excited to be able to share about this new certification that we're working on for you guys to make you more marketable, to give you an opportunity to gain knowledge that's going to help you so much in the field of medical fitness, which is really the direction our entire fitness field is going because of just the trends in health in our country and throughout the world. So if you want to go ahead to the next slide.
Okay. I am on it. There you go.
Okay, so this is just what we're going to go through today. I'm going to introduce myself, explain, my background. We're going to talk about some real simple statistics. Then we're going to talk about the different chronic diseases that is covered in the medical fitness certification or specialist certification. And then we're going to talk about programming. So the differences between a certified personal trainer and a medical fitness specialist. What are the differences between the two? How it gets a little more in depth with the MFS certification. And then I'll give you guys plenty of time to do question and answer. I didn't make the presentation too long, so hopefully you guys will have lots of time to send out questions, whether you ask them vocally or you type them in, or even you're more than welcome to email me or Jay after the presentation. We won't give you the answers to the quiz though, so don't try that one. But we definitely will answer other questions you have. Right, if you want to go to the next slide, please.
There you go.
Okay, so a little bit about me. I've been in the field of health and wellness for 14 years now. I have my Master's of Science in Kinesiology from LSU in Baton Rouge. I specifically focused in sports management and nutrition. I used to be a full-time professor at Houston Baptist in Houston, and then I moved back home to be closer to my family. I taught at Marquette University part-time for about 7 years. I currently am a certified exercise physiologist through ACSM, and I also carry the exercises medicine credential through ACSM, and both of those are very much in that chronic condition area that we're going to be talking about today. I have worked in both commercial and corporate settings. They're both very different. Commercial is very, into sales. Corporate is a lot more health-based, kind of that medical fitness. And currently, I'm actually working at a medical fitness facility where I'm located in Munster. I teach group exercise and I personal train. My email is right there. You'll see it again at the end of the presentation. Write it down. I have no issue with you guys emailing me. I still am getting emails from the CPT course I just taught over the last few weeks, and I love being able to help people out even outside of the time that I'm teaching. So please use me as a resource. I'm here for you guys. Go to the next slide, please. All right, so some quick statistics. 6 out of 10 adults have one chronic disease in the United States, and this comes from the CDC. Of the 100% of that, 4 out of 10 have 2 or more chronic diseases. All right, and if we're going to go through some chronic diseases, what they are, but I mean, these are things that any one of us can actually have. Diabetes, type 1, type 2, and renal issues, heart issues. I mean, you name it, it's any chronic condition that anybody can have. And I guarantee all of you can sit back and think about the people you see in your facilities and your clients and realize that, that's the majority of people walking through the doors. They've got some sort of chronic condition. They're not just a person who has nothing wrong with them at all. All right, there's issues there, and we need, as personal trainers, we need to be better prepared to work with those things. That visual that I have on there is kind of a spiral of what happens as chronic disease kicks in. If it's not taken care of and you start out at the top and then it slowly just continues to spiral or snowball down, and then you get to a point where they call it infirmity. I mean, you are at the point where you're not able to do regular things because you are so sick from those chronic conditions. All right, move to the next slide, please. So here are some of the chronic diseases that you will get the opportunity in this certification to work with. The 3 most common that are listed by the CDC are heart disease and stroke, cancer, and diabetes. All of the diabetes meaning mostly type 2, but you'll also see type 1 once in a while. Those are the most common that you see for chronic conditions. A lot of times the diabetes and heart disease go to get hand in hand together. So there's an example of 2 chronic diseases people could have. Some other conditions that you will learn how to program for and work with in the certification is high blood pressure and dyslipidemia. So just abnormal cholesterol levels, overweight and obesity, osteoporosis, COPD, coronary artery disease, peripheral artery disease, and atherosclerosis. And then we're also going to be including depression and anxiety. This is it's a topic not a lot of people love to talk about. I think that's changing quite a bit, but depression and anxiety really affects people, and especially after COVID, it's a problem with probably most people in the world. So you're going to learn how to interact and better program things for people who have those 2 emotional problems, because it really does come into play a lot when you're working with a client who is struggling to hit their health and fitness goals. You could go to the next slide, please. All right, so there's further training that we will eventually offer you guys to go into some even more in-depth information. We're going to provide this certification in a 2-level step. So that first level is going to include what I talked about on the last slide. The second level will also go in deeper into including a lot of these conditions. So to mention Alzheimer's, that's huge at the facility I work with. Multiple sclerosis, Parkinson's, cerebral palsy, and muscular dystrophy, stroke, brain trauma, and spinal cord injuries, chronic fatigue and fibromyalgia. Those are very common, more than you realize. Chronic kidney and liver disease, asthma and cystic fibrosis. That's an issue that we see a lot. And then chronic heart failure and aneurysms. these are conditions that you don't see very often, but like Jay was saying when he kind of introduced this whole webinar, there is a way to make yourself more valuable and marketable, and this certification is going to do that. All right, so I've had my certification through ACSM as a certified exercise physiologist, which that is just another version of this specific certification that we are putting together for you. I can tell you from personal experience, having that certification, I am always one of the first people to stick around because I can work with so many different clients and do it safely and effectively because I've gained that information to do that. An average certified personal trainer is not going to have any of the knowledge or very little of the knowledge that you're going to get from this certification. You can go to the next slide, please.
Yeah, and if I can interject on that
Oh, yeah,
too, I
by all means.
just to emphasize, gang, is that there is so much in this text that we're using, and so many possibilities for programming variables to take into consideration of do's and don'ts that we're breaking it up into two distinct certifications. So, as she mentioned, the level 2, that's something we'll be working on and hope to have in the fall, sometime at the end of the year. But the requirement, the prerequisite, if you will, it will be the medical fitness specialist level 1, because it's a ladder. You're climbing up your third, fourth rung kind of thing, and what is a never-ending learning experience. So we want to make sure you climb it and are successful and helpful and can do a really good job and not just piece it together out of luck. So as always, we're going to take care of you. And Pamela is handling the practical skill part of this certification because that is her mega strong point. And then we have Dave Johnson, who's our curriculum director, who's doing the lecture portions of it in the front end for the core knowledge. So it's a nice 1-2 punch between two quality professionals, as well as, again, this level 1 and level 2 are really going to elevate your game, so to speak, so you can be that star on the court in your particular arena in your community. So here we go.
All right, so let's go ahead and get into kind of like a review of certified personal trainer programming. So for those of you that actually took the W.I.T.S CPT certification, this was in the first lecture, you learned about Mr. Please. I put it up there. I'm not going to very specifically go through each and every single one of these, but the idea is, you're given a client, you need to learn their background, learn their goals. You need to classify their risk or do risk stratification, to see where they're at, make sure they don't have any pertinent signs of cardiovascular, metabolic, or renal disease for their safety and yours as well legally. Then you also need to decide if, there's a medical clearance needed before they do any activity with you. Then you go through your fitness testing and you go through and discern the results. You set up exercise programming, and then you also want to keep progressing that. And the way you progress it and see if they're hitting their goals is to continually reevaluate and do the exercise testing again. You can go to the next slide, please.
Okay. There you go.
All right. So one of the things that most people have learned or heard of is that FIT principle. So within the CPT programming of what I just went through, we're going to look at the setup of the exercise prescription. All right. FIT principle is one of the common things that you've heard of that you use. It stands for frequency, intensity, time, and type of activity. For those of you that have taken a class with me, you know that I constantly talk about the guidelines of exercise testing and prescription book through ACSM. They have an 11th edition coming out in 5 days. I've already pre-ordered it. That book is like the Bible when it comes to exercise testing and prescription, and a ton of the things in this CPT certification, the charts and graphs are in that book. The FIT principle is in there. And making sure that what you're giving to your clients matching that FIT principle is what's going to make that programming effective, okay? If it doesn't have one of those, it's going to not be as effective in terms of them hitting their goals and seeing results, all right? So the principle, the FIT principle, you use it for everyday clients, but in the text we're using for this class, and I realized now I didn't put it into the presentation, so I can always, state it later on. It specifically looks at using the FIT principle and then modifying things to match the chronic condition or conditions that that person may have. The book specifically gives you changes in progression and then your knowledge of that condition, all right? What the condition does to that person's body, how it affects them, what limitations it may give them, and then how you would work on programming around those things, all right? Those limitations that they may get, depending on what the condition is, there may not be a ton of limitations, but, you get into, say, that level 2 certification and you're looking at someone who has MS or cerebral palsy, depending on the advancement of that disease or chronic condition, they're going to have a lot of limitations, all right? So you're going to learn about those limitations and then how to work around them so you can successfully have that person hit their wellness and fitness goals. Right, can you go to the next slide, please? All right, so let's talk about the medical fitness specialist certification in terms of programming. So one big thing that you're going to have to be aware of in getting these clients, how they are handed to you, you don't necessarily have to go out and search for them. Depending on the facility you work in, you may have them actually referred to you. And I can tell you this about this certification. When you have this certification, you can actually market yourself to different primary care doctors, family doctors, because you know what, and you'll look at these statistics, they do not have time to sit down and help someone understand what they have to do to be physically active or exercise. All right. And I'll be totally honest with you, nothing against doctors, but sometimes they don't even really think about the difference between physical activity and exercise. They use that word and that phrase together interchangeably, and there's a big difference between the two. So you are able to show them this certification and go, hey, send me the people that you want to be more active. I can work with the conditions that they may have. I'll provide a safe and effective environment, and it takes everything off their plate to try to help that person get healthy by being active. Most doctors today understand that exercise is medicine, and they want their patients to be more active so they can get off their medication. They can be moving around more and see their body weight get better, whatever the issue may be, but they don't have time to teach their patients how to do that. That's where you come in. And this certification will allow you to show that medical professional, physical therapist, doctor, whatever it is, that you got the knowledge, you know what to do, and you can very easily work with their clients and work with them interchangeably and have a relationship with that medical professional as well to make sure that that patient is hitting their goals. All right. And I will say this, I work with patients at my facility. So if you hear me say patient, I'm also meaning client. It kind of goes hand in hand. So moving a little bit into, going through that Mr. Please with the MFS certification programming, you as a personal trainer or as this MFS need to take a very, very deep dive into their medical history, okay? You have to identify the chronic conditions, which I will be honest with you, with some chronic conditions like heart disease or things like that, they don't always tell you. So you got to ask, all right? This is something that goes hand in hand with being a regular personal trainer. Some of these conditions are very easy to hide, especially the common chronic conditions. So if you have this certification, diving into understanding if this person has these things and talking with them about it is only going to give you better information and better tools to help them reach their goals, either quicker, more efficiently, safely, all of the above, okay? You want to learn about how their body has responded to that condition, so what type of limitations they may have. And then you want to make sure you get a full list of medications that they are taking, all right? This is huge. Okay. A lot of personal trainers don't realize that depending on the medication someone is on, that can actually change how their body reacts to doing exercise. Right. So a good example, I say it a lot in my classes, is a beta blocker. When someone is taking a beta blocker for their heart, and they must have some sort of heart condition, and they don't typically tell you they may have this. So again, this is something you want to get out of them. A beta blocker causes your heart to not increase its beating rate when you exercise. So when someone's on a treadmill walking on an incline, their heart rate isn't going to go up. So then guess what happens? They're going to start losing blood flow to their feet, and their toes are going to start going numb. And then all of a sudden they might trip and fall on your treadmill. All right. You need to be looking into these. So my biggest thing with medications, if you don't know what the medication does for their body and side effects, you got to look it up. You've got the internet at your fingertips. All right. It's easy to do. Go online outside of your time with that client and look up those medications so you understand what they're taking and how that medication could potentially affect their body when they're working with you. All right. Now, if they're not referred to you with instructions from a medical professional, you need to decide if medical clearance is necessary. All right. And I'll tell you this right now. I highly recommend you just get medical clearance. Okay. Swing it in the form for that person of, you know what, you have this chronic condition. It's very common to have this chronic condition, but I want to specifically hear from your doctor what he wants you to work on, what your goals should be. And then we can expound upon them further. But then that way you can tell that client, it gives you a lot more specific guidance so you're able to better help them hit their goals. That's the thing that's also nice. When someone gives you directions from a medical professional, they sign off on that sheet. There's a part on there where they have to write what limitations are or what they want you to work on. So guess what, guys? You just got handed on a golden platter what you're going to do with that client. You don't have to figure it out yourself. It's that awesome. Plus, it also protects you a little bit more. All right, because you've been given by a medical professional what the limitations are, so you know not to go past them. All right, so for legal things, it also protects you even more. You have that sheet that gives you direction. All right, I absolutely love getting medical clearance. Not only does it help me develop trust with my clients, they're usually like, wow, thank you for doing that. You know, especially if they have a condition that they know about and they readily talk about. And you say, hey, I want to make sure that I'm following the limitations your doctor wants for you, so that way I can do everything in my power to help you reach your goals in the safest way possible. You know what? People love it when you do that. And they're going to keep coming back to you because you're doing everything in your power to provide them with that super safe and then yet effective personal training environment. You can go to the next slide unless you have something to say, Jay.
I always have something to say.
I figured.
Yeah, no, actually, I got a question here from Nancy. She was asking, she goes, I'm not familiar with Mr. Please. I
Okay,
think she
I'm
wanted
sorry
to
about that.
define or explain. Yeah,
That's
it's okay.
okay. If you want to go back a few slides to that slide, I can just
Okay.
really quickly kind of talk through it. I'm not going to go through everything very specifically. One more. There we go. So Mr. Please is a way to take you through very beginning when you're given a client all the way through to when you're reassessing them. And it's just the steps you would take. So that initial meet and greet, going through finding out their goals, their health history. Then you're going to go through if they have the stratifying risk, you know, whether or not they have a higher risk level, should you get medical clearance, all right? Then you go through your fitness testing. Then you determine the results of that. Then you program out for them what you're going to do. And then last step of the process is to retest to see progress and reprogram that progression. So, you know, you're moving through and helping that client see results. That's just basically what Mr. Please is. Don't forget, when someone is doing a certification in personal training for the first time, a lot of times they have like very little information on what goes into working with the client. And I am extremely big on developing rapport with clients and walking through every step of that for your protection and for you to be able to better train that client and help them hit their goals. The more information you can get from them, the better and the easier your job will be. Were there other
Okay.
questions, Jay?
I'm looking. So it's the name of the process. Nancy says, so it's
Yes.
the name of the process.
It's the name of
Okay.
the process. Yeah, it's an acronym for the process. Yeah. And if you didn't do a certification through W.I.T.S for personal training, you may not have heard of it. I had not heard of it until I started teaching for W.I.T.S, but it is kind of an effective way to make sure you've kind of hit all those bullet points you need to do as you're working with a client, especially when you start out with them.
And I have a question here from Carla, and I'm pretty sure it does in the book. It does have a template for medical clearance in the book, a
Yes.
suggested form, doesn't it? Yeah, that's what I thought
Yes,
so. Okay.
in the certification, in the book for the CPT, what W.I.T.S uses, there is a medical clearance form. Honestly, guys, sometimes your facility may have a medical clearance form. Sometimes the doctor's office of the clients may have a medical clearance form, or you can go online. But the biggest thing is making sure that you have information, diagnosis of disease, what the limitations or goals are, and then that doctor's signature with the date. Those are the big things you need to have, so you can keep it in your file to protect yourself legally, and have that information.
Yeah, and I have here, the questions are flowing now. Would the insurance or liability be different with this certification?
Not necessarily. It also really depends on the facility you work at as well. So like my facility is a medical fitness facility, so I am covered by that facility to a certain extent, through the hospital system. That the facilities run through a hospital system, basically, is what it is. Depending on the gym you're at, if you're in a corporate setting that also has like a health center, there may be, some other insurance coverage. Otherwise, my biggest thing that I say all the time is when you get insurance as a personal trainer, whether you're a regular personal trainer, even this medical fitness specialist, you have to have coverage up to $1 million on everything. All right. If you're not at that point, you got to up your insurance. And it does cost a lot of money, but unfortunately, guys, it's worth doing because you never know when someone's going to come back around, despite how responsible you are, and try to sue you. It's very common in today's world. It's unfortunate, but you need to protect yourself. So I wouldn't say there's going to be a big difference. It also depends on the company you go through for insurance. You kind of have to look at what their options are and then pick the best one that's for you, but always make sure it's up to $1 million.
Beautiful. Okay, and let's see. So the upcoming book you like is the ACSM version 11.
No, well,
It's-
okay. I'm sorry, yes. So the name of that book that is released on March 30th is ACSM's Guidelines for Exercise Testing and Prescription. Go on Amazon. They sell it there. There's a 10th edition you could get. What I'm super excited about for this 11th edition is they are including the newest research on how to exercise, do fitness testing, and program exercise prescription for people who struggle with dementia and Alzheimer's. So all the newest research for that is now included in this 11th edition. The big deal about the 10th edition that came out maybe 4 or 5 years ago was it finally included all of the newest research on high intensity interval training. So this book it's updated somewhat frequently, but it's consistently giving you the information that comes from the newest cutting edge research from all the professors at different universities. They give all that information to ACSM, and then ACSM compiles it and puts it into this little book. Well, it's not really that little. It's kind of small, but it's a book that, I highly recommend you have. I use mine constantly. I have little like paper pieces in it and folded pages over and all this stuff. I'm constantly looking in that book when I work with my personal training clients, to make sure I'm exercise testing right, looking at the results. It's a great way to look at results from different exercise testing you're doing. I even pull that book out in front of my clients and show them things every once in a while if they're interested in learning more in-depth information.
Beautiful. Okay. I told we have a couple here, probably Carla and a couple others that we would put it in the chat before we would sign off. The name of the
Absolutely.
books. That we can,
I can do
yeah.
that. Yep.
Okay.
And then I can also put the name of the book that we're planning to use for the MFS certification. It is also through ACSM. It's their 4th edition of this book, and it's a very well written book. Both Dave Johnson and I are very happy with how this book is laid out in terms of how you guys learn about the conditions and then how to apply it to your clients. It's wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed. Okay. Next slide.
Yeah, we're gonna
Boom.
need to go ahead a few. Go one more. Okay, wait, I'm sorry, go back. Maybe you went back to where you were. One more back, make sure I'm not too far ahead of myself.
Okay. That's
Okay,
all
yep,
right.
go ahead, one more. You were right, I'm
One
so
more it is.
sorry, Jay. Jeez, here we
No,
go.
not at all.
All right,
Wait. it-
so continuing on with programming and all that, when you do fitness testing with a client with chronic conditions, now this sometimes, and I'm going to give this little star asterisk over here, sometimes a client will come to you that is somewhat disabled and has a lot of limitations, and obviously they come with medical clearance. Then you may not actually do fitness testing on them because it's not physically possible. Okay, and that's fine. All right, you are going to have directions from their medical professional, their doctor, as to what you should be doing. Then you stick to that. All right. But if you don't have that, you need to be very, very aware of what limitations may potentially crop up. Okay, especially the body's response to exercise. Okay, again, the medications, if they have different things that happen when they start trying to move quicker. I mean, maybe something will go a little numb, or maybe they have a leg that they can walk fine, but then something happens, and it gets a little more like a limp. You have to be aware of all of those things, and you have to be creative around how you can do fitness testing. You do not have to stick to the most common and widely used fitness tests. All right. You don't have to do the step test. You don't have to do the walk run test on a treadmill. You can do completely different things as long as it's something that is measurable and something that can be improved. Go for it. Do it. Okay. Maybe for someone, being more functional, maybe they really struggle to get up out of a chair for some reason. So, you know what? You are going to test them to see how many times they can stand up out of a chair. All right. You write down that number, or maybe you do it for a length of time. Okay. Or until they tucker out. And then the next time you test it, how many more times can they do it? All right. That's exercise testing, guys. It doesn't have to be something crazy like what you and I would do to work out. You need to just be creative and make sure that what you're picking for that person to do is also functional. Some people may have activities of daily living that they can't do. All right. So figure out a way to exercise test for that activity, and then do exercises and exercise programming that will specifically help them with that activity. Okay. Just be creative as you go through these things. Again, it needs to be something you can test continually over time, so you and the client see improvement. All right. You want to review the results of that fitness testing with your client. Okay. And you want to give them a deeper explanation of those results and how to progress. All right. A lot of times when someone has a chronic condition that does give them a fair amount of limitations, they want that information to be ensured that they are actually going to get help. Okay. A lot of times there's a significant amount of hesitation that goes along with someone coming into a personal trainer, because they're kind of like, I don't really know if this is going to work. I don't know if they're going to understand, how to work around these things. And they usually get scared and don't come in. So if someone has come into you and talks about this, you have to develop such a rapport with them that they trust you on another level to be willing to do things. Okay. So taking the time to really explain the results of that testing and show them, where they're at, where their doctor wanted them to go, or where you think is wise for them to go, depending on if you got that medical clearance. You need to make sure you do that, because all it's going to do is really help put that client at ease, and they'll begin to trust you so much more. All right. They'll be like, you know what? This personal trainer is smart. They know what they're doing, and I can trust them with doing the exercise and more or less trust them with my body so I can actually see my health improve. All right. Biggest thing, again, I've said this before, you have to provide your client with that safe environment. Again, that also goes along with the level of trust. If they don't feel safe, they're not going to do it. All right. So you need to make sure that you are providing that environment, and they also trust you enough to be able to try things out. Okay. And then have an understanding that progress can sometimes be very minimal. Okay. Depending on the chronic condition. All right. Now, if it's something that's, heart disease, that they may not seem like they have limitations. Okay. But say someone has something that's a little bit, it provides them with a little more limitation. Say they have asthma. Okay. They can't breathe very easily when they start exercising. All right. So you need to make sure that you are continually encouraging them. All right. And almost taking it to an over positivity level, kind of holding their hand through it, again, develops that sense of trust. They're willing to try things. You're there to help them and you're there to guide them. Okay. And then again, when you're doing this, you still use that fit principle that I went through before, because that's still going to apply. You just have to add in those limitations and cautions on top of what you program. Okay. Can you go to the next slide, please?
Boom.
All right. So just some quick things. Testing progression is going to obviously dependent on the client and their progress. Could be slow, could be fast. It could be fast in some areas, slow in another. You just need to be patient. You need to keep walking them through everything as much as you can. The other thing you need to also be aware of is their limitations when they're not in the facility with you. Okay. If someone has some good limitations that get in their way, the chance of them being able to do activity outside of that facility may not be very great. So either you need to accommodate for that with an at-home workout that you give them that they can do, or you need to be seeing them more often or telling them to come in on their own more often. All right. There's lots of things that play into this: lack of equipment, lack of space, lack of support. Maybe they need you to help them with some of the exercises. All right, because they struggle to get on a machine or they struggle to get into a position to do something and you have to physically help them. They're obviously not going to do that at home. Okay, so either give them another option to do at home to see progress, or they need to see you more often. All right, if they develop a trust in you and they see progress, you guys, they're going to see the value in spending the money to do more sessions with you. But you have to develop that rapport to make sure that they do trust you with their body and their money. All right. Okay, go to the next slide, please. I think that's the last one. Yes, it is. All right, so we're open for questions. There's my email. I believe what Jay had sent me, that if you purchase the certification, it's 20% off. So he can explain that a little more.
Yeah. We had some pre-sale stuff, but obviously we're looking to release this here, and it's projected for April. I want to say that, just across the board, we are really, really big on, especially now since COVID, the career pathways, the stackable skills. So we're offering 20% off actually any of our certifications this month. And it may be extended the next month. I think I probably will, but since you're on here and a lot of these are asking. But yeah, it's just 20% off whatever the listed price is for the program. And there are some other questions here. I want to interject that when we talk about making yourself of value and establishing that relationship rapport, I do want to make it a key item here, which I know Pamela has always had a focus on, is also building that bridge back to the medical community. Mm-hmm. That doctor is now going to have a positive relationship with you, with what happened with their particular patient who got good results, feels better about themselves. It's taken those baby steps towards the big steps. And the next time he has somebody in a similar situation in that community, who's he going to recommend, or who's he going to look to talk to more often, mm-hmm. to try to have that two-way bridge back and forth to help
Yeah.
and be safe for their people. So,
Yeah, and
yeah,
and like I said too, I'm going to interject. You guys, doctors do not have time to be. I can tell you from personal experience. I used to actually hold office hours at the corporate setting I worked in, and I was actually referred patients to sit down in an office with me from those doctors. They do not have time to be teaching their patients how to be active, exercise. That's it's it's not part of their job description in reality. But that's where you come in. So developing that relationship means you'll get clients. And it also means that, you're going to be giving that doctor almost a way to build their business as well, because they're willing to work with you, and it goes hand in hand. It's just a big circle, and it just gets better and better.
yeah. And Pamela, I think you might be able to help me on this too, because I've always heard that there's specific medical codes now that a doctor can uh, issue those kind of exercise prescriptions, if you will, and using
Mm-hmm.
a specialist
Insurance.
like yourself to
Yeah.
then carry out those things, and they'll bill for you and pay you directly. Obviously, they'll have their
Yeah.
markup, I'm sure.
So
But
it truly
those
depends
are
on
out
your
there and
insurance
active.
company. Yeah, it depends on your insurance company, what programs you may be signed up for. Um, I know when I worked in that corporate setting, they, the patient was referred to me, and then when they met with me, I was salaried, so I was reimbursed otherwise, but the insurance company was billed for that time as if I was like a doctor or medical professional, that was working in that setting. So there's a lot of it's a new thing, and for those of you that understand insurance companies, they don't love new things. So it truly does depend on the situation in which you work, in where you work, the insurance company. But like I always say to my patients, call your insurance company, talk to them, see what programs they have, see what things they're willing to do. Sometimes the doctor is even able to say, I can bill it with this code, so then you're reimbursed part way or something. So you just have to kind of do your research as the patient or client, and have them go into the doctor, have them, talk to their insurance company. It's coming around. I will say that. Insurance companies just love to see years of research before they're willing to shell out money, which is hilarious because they have so much money. But it's one of those things that hopefully in the future it'll be a lot easier for a patient to be reimbursed when seeing someone like a medical fitness specialist.
Yeah, and I think everybody has to do their due diligence, like you're saying, as
Mm-hmm.
far as telling the client to go back, talk to the doctor about it, see if there's a medical code that'll cover part of it or all of it. And then you really need to keep your own records on it, because when you run into that next time you run into a patient from Anthem or something like that, you're
Mm-hmm.
going to be able to run down specifics that they can go back in and ask their doctor to help them
Yeah.
fine
The
tune
other
getting
thing
them what
I
they
would
need.
say
Yeah.
too is always keep your records no matter what, because it may get to a point where an insurance company is able to list it. I'm not saying they do this right now, but in the future they list you as an actual provider, so then you are going to have to file forms, provide them with medical records. So get in the habit now. Your medical records of each client should be very, very robust. It should be under lock and key constantly. But you need to be aware of keeping those things too, because medical doctors may request information as to what you've been doing with their patient. So it's always wise just to really, really keep those medical records extremely specific, even down to like conversations you have outside of a training session or a phone call and what was discussed. I mean, we're talking like very, very specific.
Good. Great point. Great point. Yeah. We have another question here. Are there recommendations on cardio for someone with asthma, or would this be something to discuss with their doctor?
Totally depends on the patient or the client. You'll learn about restrictions in the certification. Their doctor may give them specific restrictions. So, if someone has severe asthma, I would highly recommend you get that medical clearance, because, again, that's just going to put everything on a golden platter for you. So you don't have to do a lot of work. They're going to tell you what they can and can't do. And another point I should make really quickly, I meant to say this earlier. If what you get on a medical clearance form doesn't make sense, call the provider, call the doctor. They will list the phone number, all right? Or you can find it online. Get in touch with them, all right? That is even more of a way to develop rapport, not only with that doctor, so they send you more clients, but also with the client. They're going to be like, you called my doctor? Thank you. They're not going to tell you, why'd you do that? They're going to be so excited you did that because you care that much about your client. You know, the more you can reach out to the provider and interact with them, the better.
Beautiful, beautiful. The question here, I think I can handle for that. Is there a time limit to complete the certification once it's purchased? I ask because I'm taking other classes, so want to take advantage of the discount, so on and so forth. Yeah, Susan, as far as that's a great question. Like all of our programs, you have 12 months to complete the course and take the exam. This particular exam is two-part. There's a written exam online, and there's also a practical skills online. It deals primarily with programming. Do you want to give an overview of that, Pamela, since that's your wheelhouse?
So basically, the idea of what's going to happen with the practical section of this certification is it's going to be very, very heavy on case studies. All right. So as you progress through learning these chronic conditions, you will be given case studies that you have to go through and figure out, you know, from the very beginning to when you first meet them, do their, you know, their health assessment, and then all the way out to reassessing again. You know, you are going to have to, it's almost like you're working with a client. You know, the only way you can really learn how to do these things is to do it, you know, and obviously it's hard for us to provide you a client with a specific condition. So the best way for us to do that is by providing case studies, and you will be giving a lot of short answers, and there may be discussion, all those different things, because it's so important for you to start at the beginning, go all the way through to the end, while keeping that very safe and effective environment for that patient or client.
Good, good. I actually have another one here with the from Nancy. Don't you need permission from the patient, client, to speak with the doctor?
It depends on that specific facility. Typically with HIPAA, if they've given you a medical clearance already, you obviously are within that realm of HIPAA because you were given the form. So the other thing you can do is to share medical information. There's always a form that you sign when you go into the doctor, that HIPAA form. You can have the client or patient fill out that form and make sure they put your name on it. So that way, when you do contact the office, they will have on file that they are allowed to speak with you because your name was written on that clearance form.
Perfect.
So that's
exactly.
going to come down to the patient or client to make sure that they're doing that for you.
Yes, that's great insights. Let's see, here's another one from Deborah. So many things I never thought of. Is there a particular way to contact doctors to get clients?
That's kind of like I want to say cold calling, but that's a very negative phrase. A lot of times it's just who you know, and then how you can kind of get your foot in the door. So it really depends. You know, you have a doctor you see, give them your information. At least I hope you have a doctor you see. Give them your information. You know, maybe you see a couple different doctors that could potentially give you patients. Maybe you have some doctors that come into your facility to work out. I've got a handful of those at my facility. All right. You know, it sometimes can be by word of mouth as well. people that I've worked with at my medical fitness facility, they see me around, they see me teaching classes, doing personal training. They come up to me and ask me, hey, can you work with me on this? And I'll be like, you know what I want you to do? I want you to get a form, a clearance from your doctor that I can work with you so they can give me some guidance. And then what I will specifically do is once I get that form, I'll still call that doctor anyways to talk to them so I can get my foot in the door in that facility. So you kind of have to look for the opportunities, I guess is a good way. Hopefully in the future, though, doctors will be able to realize that we as these specialized personal trainers are out there and they may come looking for us. So at least that's my hope in the future.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Nancy had said something about that as well, that everybody they're looking, they want to refer. They just got to find a professional with the right credentials,
Exactly.
this,
They do want to refer because
that
they
they
don't have
can
time.
trust. Yeah,
So
yeah. So it's going to
that's where
be
you come in.
you almost want to overkill it by
Yep.
making sure, even if you don't have to, you want to call that doctor just to let them know that you're working with their client, and they're
Yes.
going to go, "Who are you?"
Yeah, exactly.
And
But then they're going to be like,
you've
wow.
got a relationship.
Yeah,
Yeah,
wow,
yeah,
that initiative that person took to call me and just say, hey, they're working with my patient. That's pretty cool. Let's see how this goes. And then maybe I'll send them somebody else. You just have to get your foot in the door.
yeah. I mean, pull 10 trainers in facilities you work in, unless it's a medical facility like you're working in, Pamela, but
Yeah, I
especially in
have
a
it
club
easy.
or a fitness center. Pull 10 of them and ask them how many times. When's the last time they called the doctor? It should be a regular practice. But when's the last time they called a
You'd
doctor
be shocked how
about
much
a
that's
chronic?
not a regular practice.
Exactly. And so the ones that do are going to stand out like a sore thumb in
Yes,
the docs. All of a sudden, you're going to have that reputation. So, yeah.
exactly. Yep.
There's the other one here was from Nancy was insurance. $1 million is a good and careful about over policy limit per occurrence per limit and so on and so forth. Yeah, you do have to
Yes.
kind of run that through. I will say we've been working now with I don't know, maybe 6-7 years, and I've been approached by everybody and their mother on different policy advantages. We finally went with CPH because they work with doctors and therapists and so on all across the country, and they added on personal trainers. Over the past 6 years, they've been working exclusively with us from that standpoint. And I can tell you, there isn't a question I can ask on any given thing that they don't get right back to me on and give me almost a dissertation on what and how they can help. So I almost think twice about calling them because I got to see if I've got time set aside because they'll get back with you within 24 hours and
That's
they'll
great.
put their resources to bear, and they're great that way. So they are on our website, and I would encourage you to go there. And they also have some great webinars and blogs and things like that deal specifically with personal trainers and that kind of thing. So there's a lot of information that you never think about, and their coverage, for instance, just even involves COVID, which I didn't know until I asked them. That they will cover you under their banner for that $1 million policy. I think it's like something ridiculous, like $130 a year. It's really, and not that I'm
That's a
pushing.
great price for that
Yeah,
coverage.
yeah,
I may
yeah,
switch myself.
yeah. The WIT trainers, they realize what you guys have gone through, so they gave
Yeah.
us a really good price for that kind of stuff.
That's,
So let's see. Here's one from Nancy too. Again, have your patient clients tell their doctors about you chronically ill. People see lots of doctors. Well, that's a good point.
yeah. So
Everybody's special with them. Yeah, go
it
ahead.
really
I'm sorry.
depends on I think I understand this question correctly. I think depending on the doctor they see the most. So like, for example, someone who is diabetic, they'll see a primary care doctor, but typically they also see an endocrinologist. And the endocrinologist is someone that, really works with their numbers for their diabetes, their blood glucose levels, how much insulin they're taking, and then working in the effectiveness of that insulin. A lot of times, be exercising and being active is what makes that insulin much more effective. So that endocrinologist would be the doctor that you would want to have them allow you to speak with to give you guidance because they're specifically working with that chronic condition. So it depends on what chronic condition they have, how it affects their body, and then as to what doctor they're going to be seeing for the condition.
Yeah. Yeah. No, great. That's everything Pamela's laying out for everybody here. Is stuff you can take to the bank. It's good common sense, but it's also very insightful business practices that she's learned through what? Through doing. And the medical fitness certification is about not just memorizing, but doing the programming, case scenario stuff that she's going to be giving you. It's really going to make you work through the process, and you're going to have a lot of help because it will be teacher mentored on the back end of it. So there'll be a
Yeah,
lot of give and
I
take.
think one thing, and I've always had this mentality as a teacher and a mentor, it's when you guys are doing a certification like this, you're not just doing it to pass your exam. I want you to be successful as that, medical fitness specialist. I want you to really know how to work with those clients or patients. I want you to make sure that you understand how to safely and effectively provide them with that environment that will help them see results without any risk, higher risk levels. It's so important that also you guys understand that you're not just going to be doing this class to learn information and pass an exam. You are going to be, I don't want to say rigorously, but you are going to be very well trained through case studies as to how to work with the clients you're going to be receiving, because that's the only way you will be successful.
Exactly. And quite frankly, it's always been the philosophy with W.I.T.S is that we have always done everything different, and it's about hanging that shingle up, so to speak, like a doctor, is that our name is on it, your name is on it, and we want to make sure that we're doing no harm, quite frankly, and something you can be proud about. And when people see you out and about, when the new norm is over and we're out in restaurants and ballparks and whatever, they come up to you and they introduce you to their spouse or whatever it may be and say, "This is a person that has brought it together for me. My life is really where it needs to be thanks to her or him or whatever." And that's what this certification is about, is to bring you to that next level. So
Exactly.
I appreciate that everybody has been very attentive and engaging, although not using your phone for the questions. But anyway, that's always my thing, because I love to hear your voices and your energy. That makes it awful special instead of hearing me. I love hearing Pamela though. So we're at 4:03. If anybody else has any extra thoughts or questions, I would love to have them. I will say just again, we will be later releasing the recording, 6 hours, which would be a little after 10 o'clock, right? Because we got to let it set, and then we'll send it out to everybody. You'll also get the quiz for those that have attended. So you'll have a great opportunity to turn that back into us. Actually, we're giving you till 5 p.m. Monday to get your quiz back in, so you can get credit, the one credit here. I have somebody here mentioning, I get some people here. Thank you, learned a lot. COVID long haul rehab is a growth area. There's no doubt about that, Nancy. You're right.
Yes.
That's going to open a lot of different
Yes.
areas for sure. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And ACSM guidelines for exercise testing and prescription. I see you wrote that. Everybody,
11th edition.
ACSM 11th edition. Okay. That's Pamela's writing that. ACSM's guideline for exercise testing and prescription 11th edition comes out at the end of the month. And Pamela doesn't even get a kickback for that book. She's just doing it because she wants you guys to be great. So
I wish they would reimburse me for how much I promoted.
maybe you'll get a free T-shirt. We'll have to talk.
Yeah, right.
Okay, everybody. Have a great weekend. Thanks for joining us. And we look forward to the next one. Check out for your newsletters for anything else we have coming out. And if you have a hot topic, send it to us. We always love working with you guys and helping you expand. Okay?
Thank you, everyone.
Everybody, take care. Thank you, Pamela.
Yeah,
Bye.
thank you. Bye.